What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. I am back with another settlement survival video, and this time I want to give you all some beginner's tips that'll help you set your settlement up for success. Now, the first thing we want to do is to find a place to settle, obviously, right? So let's go ahead and find a decent place. Now, when you find somewhere to settle, you want to find somewhere where it has a flat area, where it's not surrounded by too many mountainous areas like this, because if you put it in the mountainous area, say I put my settlement right here, then I place it down right here. This is the center of the settlement. And then over here, I build my logging camp. Now my logger has to walk all the way around the mountain to get back to the settlement. So building it around mountains is not a good idea. Ideally though, you want to build it in a flat area and somewhere that's around a lot of resources, but sometimes that's not always possible. You know, you can't build it in an area that has an abundance of resources. Like you see those icons there that tells you, like this one is the grassland point, pastures additional 100% output. It's not always possible to put it somewhere, you know, that's close to one of those areas. So just find somewhere that you think is relatively flat, and ideally you want it to be close to water as well. And this map, see, doesn't seem like it has too many flat areas, but we're gonna have to find somewhere and make do, I guess. All right, so for now, I guess this have to make do just for the purposes of this video. Now, you notice we start off with 30 settlers. Now, these people are going to need somewhere to live. So the first thing I want to do, tip number one, I should say, would be housing. Now, you don't want to build too many houses right off because you don't want to use up all your resources. So what I suggest doing is building 2 normal houses. And what I mean by normal houses, I mean just single dwelling homes. So build 2 of those and build a boarding house. Now what that will allow you to do is these 2 homes right here will be filled, I believe, with 4 family members. Each house can hold 4 family members. So there's 2 families that'll live in this house, and the rest of the settlers will live in the boarding house. And then that will take care of the housing needs that we need in the beginning. So while we have the housing needs filled temporarily, eventually though, I'm going to want to build more than just this boarding house. I'm going to want to build more single dwelling homes like these for the rest of the settlers, because the people that live in the boarding house are not going to reproduce, because they want to have their own private homes before they start making, you know, babies and helping to increase the population. So eventually we can't leave them in there forever, but it's a good place to start. Next thing we're going to need, as you can see up here, we got 500 I guess there's morsels of water. So the next thing we're going to do is make sure that our people can have more water coming in, because eventually that's gonna run out, because all these people get thirsty, and you know how that goes with these thirsty people out here. Anyways, trying to see where the well is. There it is. The best thing you want to do is build a big well, because this small well, I mean, while it does what it needs to do, the big well is much more efficient than the small well, for obvious reasons. So just find a good decent place to put down the well. I usually like to put it next to my my marketplace right here. So I place that down, and now that will ensure that our people, once it's built, can have a steady supply of water, even though they're sitting right here next to the river, which is fresh water. I guess they too good to drink it from over there, but we got them a well nevertheless, so that way they won't die of dehydration. For the next tip, you're going to want to keep your food resources increasing. So what you're going to want to do is build a field. Now you have the standard field and you have the normal field. The standard field and the normal field are pretty much the same thing, but the standard field is a fixed size. So the standard field is 8 by 8. So that's pretty decent size to start off with. But you're going to want to build 2 of those so you can get your food resources going. So let's place 2 of those down, and they have to clear those off. And once those are cleared off, I'll show you what we have to do next. We'll just have to have them to you have to set the type of crop that you want them to build. So let's speed up the time so we can kind of get things moving right along, get these houses built, get these fields cleared and this well built. Now you can see that these fields are cleared off now, and it has the question mark icon because I have to tell them what type of crop to plant. So we're just gonna start off with a tomato seed, and for that one, and for this one, we'll start off with some cabbages. Now, you don't have to assign workers to these; they'll just automatically be assigned, and now they'll start cultivating those fields. And eventually, you'll start seeing our food resources increase. You'll start seeing the cabbage go up from 0 to however many they make. The tomatoes go from 0 to however many they make, and that'll be a steady supply of food in the beginning. Now, you also might want to go ahead and build a pasture, because the pasture, what that does, if you have any animals roaming around your settlement anywhere, once you get that built, the animals will be herded into the pasture, and then you can use the pasture. Hopefully, if you get some cows, you can use it for meat, and you can use it for leather, which we'll also need later on down the line to make clothing once we get our tailor shop built up. But that's another tip that I'll give you in just a second. So let's go ahead and place this down. I usually like to put it right next to the pasture, because right next to the field, because I feel that the pasture and the field just goes hand in hand. Now, while they're clearing off the land for the pasture, I'm gonna go ahead and jump to the next tip, which would be the resources. Now, what I mean by resources is this informational chart right here. So you can see it keeps up with how many resources we have. Let me pause the game real quick so we don't dwindle down too fast, but it keeps up with how many resources we have. And what I'm going to want to do is, first off, you can see we have 204 timber, but that's going to keep going down as we steadily continue to build and people use it for, to warm their homes and such. So what we're going to want to do is build if I can find where it is, there it is, build a logging camp. That way the logger will go out and he'll cut down the trees and he'll bring the timber to the camp, and that can be turned into domestic fuel to fuel the houses, which I'll show you that in a second. So what you want to do is put your logging camp in an area that's not too far away from your village, but not too close. But you want to put it in an area that's heavily wooded, so you can have some trees to cut down. So this seems like a good area right here to put it. So let's place one there. Start the game time so they can go ahead and get that building. You also are going to need a gathering station, because what the gatherer does, he goes out and gathers all the plants and the herbs that you need for medicine. So when your people get sick, they'll have medicine. So you go to want to go ahead and place down the gathering station, but you want to place the gathering station down in the area that is heavily wooded, even more heavily wooded than the logging camp location. But it's a good idea sometimes to just put them close together. So let's go ahead and put him over here. I didn't mean to do that. Go ahead and rotate him around and get him over here in this area. And that way, once that gets built, the gatherer will go out and start gathering plants and the herbs that we need for survival. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our pasture once again. Now we just have to choose what type of animal we want to put in the pasture. And all we seem to have right now is ducks. So let's go ahead and tell them to bring ducks, and that'll give us some duck meat, feathers, and dried animal dung. Now, continuing on with the resources that we'll need, the next thing I want to put down is a hunting cabin. And that's pretty much self-explanatory. You put that down, the hunter goes out and kills the animals for the meat. He might go out and kill animals for leather, which we're gonna have to depend on him for that, since we don't have any cows in our pasture over there. This one doesn't necessarily have to be in a wooded area. It can be pretty close to your camp. The hunter will just go out in the woods anyway and do what he needs to do. So let's go ahead and place them down right there. Speed up the time a little bit so they can go ahead and get these built. And move on to the next thing we're going to need is tools and clothing. All right. So we're going to have to build, for tools, we're going to have to find get a blacksmith going, because the blacksmith is going to be the man that make the tools. So he doesn't have to be away from your town. You can put him right next to the town. Just pick an area where you want to kind of make, well, what I like to do is pick an area where I like to make my quote unquote industrial type area. So I'll place him pretty close over here to the hunting cabin. Put him about right there. So once they get that built, he'll go ahead and start making us some tools. And the people can be much more efficient when they're going down to chop down trees or, till the fields over here. And I also mentioned we want to build clothing. For clothing, you're going to need a tailor's workshop, because the tailor we'll get the materials from the hunter, which is like the leather and stuff. And if you're lucky enough to have alpacas or I believe sheep around your area, you can get some wool. You can make some wool clothes. So let's go ahead and place down the tailor shop. I usually put them right next to the blacksmith. So we got those two things taken care of. Once they get that cleared out, I'll set the production limits for those, and I'll show you that once they finish those up. Let's go ahead over here and check on our other two things. They're gathering the materials for that, the stone and stone for that, and they'll get those built here shortly. And if you look right here, this is our open warehouse. Now once these get built, these buildings right here, once the logging camp gets built over here and the gathering station, that's going to start getting filled up pretty fast. All right, because all those resources that are being collected are going to be brought to this open warehouse right here. And as you can see, it's not very big. So what I like to do in the early game is to go ahead and build another one, because like I say, it gets filled up very fast. And then if it gets filled up, then your people have nowhere to place their resources. And I'm really not sure what they do with them if they can't put them there. They just don't collect them, I guess. Let's go ahead and build another one of those. So once our buildings get built, they have a nice place to put all their resources. Just a quick tip right here, one that I didn't even plan putting in this video because I forgot about it, but now that I just remembered it, as you can see, these buildings right here were kind of on hold because they were waiting for some resources, and we ran out of the stone that we needed to place to build those. So what you need to do in that situation is come down here to this pickaxe tool, and you can tell your people to go collect resources like stone. You can tell them to collect trees or plants and stuff like that. So if you ever started to run low on anything over here like building materials and herbs like that, you can go out and specifically tell your people exactly what you want them to collect. So what I did was just went over, I highlighted the collect stone icon, highlight the area you want them to harvest, and they'll go ahead and do just that. And that way you can have the materials to get your buildings built if you start to run out. All right, as you can see right here, they got our gatherer station built. They got our logging camp built up here, and they'll start to gather the herbs, and they'll start to cut down the trees, and you'll start to see the raw materials for the timber to go up, and you'll start to see some herbs and stuff coming in. The medicine is what this counted as. It's herbs, but they consider it just the medicine in the game. Those numbers will start going up steadily, and we'll go ahead and get our other buildings built here. We got the hunting cabin up. Now you don't have to assign workers again because they'll automatically be assigned, but you do have the option to open and close job positions. So if I wanted to make this a 2-person job, I will open this up, and then somebody else would, they would become a hunter, or I could assign them. Now you see over here, my citizens are getting coal. Now that's going to bring me to my next tip in the game, is fuel. Now in order to make fuel, what I mean by that is they cut down the trees, bring the timber, and the timber they turn into raw fuel for warming houses. So what I'm going to need for that, let me go ahead and pause the game real quick so my people don't freeze while I'm trying to tell you about this. But what you're going to need for that is a sawmill. All right, now this game comes with development points, and in the development tree you have all different types of tiers. So you got the quality of life, education, trade, mining, construction, agriculture, processing, and logistics. Now in the construction tab, you have what they call the sawmill. So what you'll do, you'll take one of these 7 points I have here, highlight the sawmill tree, click activate. Now what that does is, if you notice right here, now we have this little dot right here, and what this dot lets us know is that there's a new building in this area. Now we have the sawmill. You got the sawmill and you have the water sawmill. Now in my opinion, my advice, I would say to build the water sawmill, because the water sawmill is much more efficient, as it tells you right here, than the standard sawmill. You can get way more domestic fuel out of that one. So let's go ahead and build one of those, and as the name implies, it is a water sawmill, so it has to be built near the water. Hopefully I can get a good place for this, since this river is kind of built kind of funky there. Might have to put it over here. Yep, let's put that right there. And I'm gonna have them to prioritize this to go ahead and get this built, because it is winter time. It's month 12, which is December, and these people are getting cold. Now, if you look right here, got another question mark for the blacksmith. And what we have to do, just like we did with the pastors over here, we have to tell him what kind of tools to build. And we don't really have a lot of iron ore to spare, but we got a bunch of stone. So I'm going to tell him to build stone tools, okay? And now what you also want to do is to set the production limit in the beginning anyway. Set it down to 40, because if you have him building 200 tools, he's just going to eat up all your resources. He's going to eat up all your wood. He's going to eat up all your stone. And that's hard to come by. I mean, it's not that hard to come by, but you don't want him to use all of that up. So just set it to 40, and that should be plenty to get you started in the early game. All right, now we got our tailor workshop built, and we have to do the same thing with him. We have him or her. We have to tell them what type of clothes you want them to make. Rough clothes out of wool, leather, alpaca wool, or linen, or cotton cloth. What I usually start off with is leather, because that seems to be the resource you start the game off with. And you can also set that to around 40 as well, for just like we did with the blacksmith. So let's increase that to 50. But the same thing, you want to set a production limit on that too, because in the early game you only have 30 to 31 settlers, so you don't need a whole bunch of clothes anyway. Now, just like I stated earlier, as you can see, my warehouses are full. So now, got to build another one, because those are filled to the max. So let's build one right there. That way they can have more places to put their resources. The next tip, I kind of already talked about this one a little bit when I talked about building a sawmill, but let's talk about the development system in this game. So like I said earlier, you have the development tree. You got the quality of life, education, trade, mining, construction, agriculture, processing, and logistics. Now what this does is, over time, as you can see this meter right here, as it fills up, you gather development points. And with those points, you put those into different areas, different trees, and it unlocks different buildings and different aspects of the game. Now, one good thing you want to focus on after you get your water mill built, you want to go ahead and place a point in school expansion and research institute. Now what those will do is, once you get those placed down, it will help you to gain more development points faster. All right, because you got the school, you got the research institute, and they're researching different things, and that boosts your development experience by 10%. So let's go ahead and highlight the school, activate it. Let's also go ahead and activate the Research Institute. Now with the Research Institute, you want to be sure before you build it that you have enough materials. So you want to have 80 wood, 40 stone, and 40 iron ore. Now you don't really start off with a whole bunch of iron ore, so you know, just build it when you have the resources for that. Now that we have unlocked those, you can see that they are in this area, in this menu now. So since we got those unlocked, have we got that done yet? Not yet. They're getting it done. So let me go ahead and put the school down first. I won't put the Research Institute down because I want to make sure they have enough iron ore to finish our water mill down there, water sawmill. So let's just go ahead and place our school in my sort of industrial area over here. Let's put it right here and get that placed down. They should be finishing up the water sawmill pretty soon. They're at about 61%. So yeah, it's really good to have a school in the beginning. It's real good to have the Research Institute in the beginning. Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and put that down now because they don't need any more iron ore for that building. And I usually like to put that right next to my school. School and Research Institute goes hand in hand in my mind. Leads you to my next tip, talking about in the same vein of the development tree. Let's go down here to agriculture. And what you can see, what I want to highlight here is the apiary tree, okay? You want to put at least 4 points into the apiary tree. You want to put it down here, and once you get down to the nursery, instead of putting the last point into the forest farm, you want to put into herb knowledge. Now let me go ahead and unlock those, and I'll explain to you why I say you want to do that. okay? Because at this point in the game, your resources are going to start dwindling, your herbs are going to start dwindling and stuff like that. So what this does, by putting the 4 points in here, you unlock the nursery and the herb knowledge, and those are the things that I want to highlight. All right, so you unlock herb knowledge, and I'll just read to you what it does. It says, herb knowledge, citizens now have chances to get herb seeds while collecting herbs. While your gatherer is out there picking up herbs and stuff like that, now he's going to get seeds, right? And with the seeds, you can build a nursery and plant those seeds and grow more herbs. And that way they keep your herb supply going, indefinitely, infinitely, I should say. As long as there's herbs being picked, you'll have them in your nursery, and your medicine supply keep going up. Because as you can see, our medicine supply is down to 98. So let's go ahead and put that down while I'm talking about it. Where's my nursery? There it is, right there. I want to put this in my agriculture area right here. I'm going to put it. Matter of fact, let me put it over. Well, it's kind of too close to the mountain, but let me put it behind. Place that right there. And now, once that gets built, the herbs that we're finding, hopefully we find a bunch of seeds. They take those seeds, they replant them, and now we got more medicine. All right, now we got to set what kind of fuel you want them to make. We're going to use timber to make domestic fuel, but they'll carry that to their homes and keep them warm in the wintertime. Now, my next tip, I want to point out two things: happiness and health. You can see our happiness is kind of average. Our health is kind of on the lower end. And what you want to do to increase those, two things you want to build here, okay? You want to build three things, I'm sorry. You want to build a church, and the church will increase the happiness, all right? Now, the church has an area of effectiveness, as you can see, that is indicated by the circle around it. And you want to make sure, didn't mean to do that, want to make sure that you place it in the area that covers the entire town. And the best thing to do is kind of place it in a central location, which I can't really do because I already got these right here. So I want to just place this. It's kind of gonna throw off my city a little bit, the symmetry I have it, but just for the purposes of this video, I'll place it back here in my agricultural area. Now the church is going to increase the happiness of the citizens. And now you want to build a clinic, because if you can see these icons here, here, and here, you can see that there are some injured citizens. And injured citizens, while they still are workers and working, they are not as efficient as they need to be. So the clinic functions the same way as the church has an area of effectiveness. So you want to put it in a central location that covers your entire town. It's placed there right next to the church. Now the third thing you want to build that helps to increase with the happiness is a cemetery, because life happens to all of us, right? And people start to die. So you're going to want to place a cemetery, because if you don't have a cemetery, once the people start to die and they don't have anywhere to bury their dead, it makes them unhappy. So let's go ahead and place a cemetery behind the church house here, and we can get that going. And now when people die, they have a place to bury their dead, and it makes them happy to be able to go and visit their loved ones who have passed on. All right, so now we got our church going. We got a clergy member in there, and eventually you'll start to see our happiness increase. And once we get our clinic built, you'll start to see the health increase as well. Because, if you got a clinic and you got the herbs, you don't have nowhere to put the herbs. You don't have a use for the herbs, really, if you don't have a clinic. And as you can see, my production limit has already been reached for my domestic fuel. I usually like to keep that around 300 myself, just to ensure that we have enough. And you can see already, now that the church is up, the happiness has started to go up, and happier citizens work more efficiently. Now, if you look at this building right here, which is my nursery, which I was highlighting earlier for the medicine, we need a material that we don't have, which is clay. Now, in order to get clay, you're going to have to go up here to the development tab, go over to the mining, and unlock sand mining. Okay, now what that does, that should unlock a sand pit, and with the sand pit we'll get the clay that we need. Now, it doesn't have an area of effectiveness, but you do have to place these near the river, because that's where they collect the the sand from. But my only dilemma is that with my river, it's kind of wonky, like I was saying earlier. So let's just put it over here in the pond. As long as it's attached to a source of water, it should be fine. So let's go ahead and get that built. Get my folks working on that. And while they're doing that, I just want to bring you to my final tip, which is population control. Now, as I stated earlier, the citizens in this boarding house are not going to reproduce because they need a private home like these to make more children. And eventually, if I don't build more homes for them, the population is going to start dwindling. So you want to make sure once you get everything kind of set up like this, everything is going smoothly. You want to go ahead and start to build more houses, which let's go ahead and do that. Let's build a couple more houses for now, just for the purpose of this video. But eventually you going to build enough houses to cover all of the citizens that are in the boarding house there. And once that's done, leave the boarding house up, because you can now, once you build a town hall later on in the game, you can use that boarding house to house the immigrants that are going to come once your town hall is up. Now you have the choice after your town hall is up to accept or decline the immigrants. I believe they come like 10 to 15 at a time. But what you don't want to do is accept too many too fast, because if you do that and you don't have enough resources, all your resources are going to start dwindling real fast and you're going to be in a heap of trouble. So just make sure you build steadily, but you build slowly. Okay, let's go ahead and tell them we want them to collect clay. And the clay will be used to get our nursery up and going. All right, now we got this all done. Let's go ahead and do like we have done with all the other builders and let them know exactly what we want them to produce. Now, normally we would have some seeds and we would just tell them exactly what we want them to build, but we don't have those right now. So once we get those, we'll be able to set that, the produce, what we want them to produce. Let's take a look at our town. We got the houses that we need, got all the resource buildings we need, we got our resources on the up and up, logging camp, gather station, all good. And if you follow these tips, your settlement will be on the right path to success. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like what you see, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you want to see more. And if there's anybody out there who's listening who'd like to accept the Lord Jesus as their Lord and Savior, I just want to say a simple prayer with you and you can be saved. Say, Lord Jesus, I repent. I turn away from sin and I choose to follow you. And you said in your word, if I confess with my mouth and believe in my heart that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, then I can be saved. Amen. I just want to congratulate you on making one of the best decisions that you could ever make in your life. The road ahead will not be easy, but nothing worth fighting for ever is. So remember, guys, to love God and game on. See you on the next one. Peace out.